Dilibe Onyeama is a Nigerian who has distinguished himself in the literary world through his globally acclaimed publications and writings. He's one of the earliest Nigerians to attend the prestigious Eton College in the United Kingdom. The son of a first-generation justice of the Supreme Court of Nigeria, Dilibe Onyeama, Dilibe suffered racism while he was a student at Eton. And that experience made such a huge impression on him that on graduation, he put it all in a book, Nigger at Eton. Just yesterday, my colleague Tundu Abiola here and Rufai Hussaini had quite an engaging interview with him, in the course of which he bared his mind on a number of issues, including an apology tendered to him by the authorities at Eton College for that unsavory experience. Let's take a look, and we will be back.
Well, number one, I wasn't the only black African pupil who was there. And I was motivated to write the book with on the spirit of adventure. It was an institution that was never designed with an African background in mind. It was created for pillars of the reading, to create the pillars of the reading class and leaders of the establishment in England. And so, since it wasn't created with an African background in mind, an African pupil there would be something of an eccentric choice. So you could say I was an eccentric choice. I went there, and based on my experiences there, I thought they merited recording in book form, in the spirit of adventure. That was what it was all about. And it was a way of life which has no meaning in Africa at all. It was only relevant in English society, Britain, America, Australia, Canada. It was a privilege to have insight into a way of life that was really designed for royalty. The school was built by royalty. And I was privileged to experience firsthand the mentality, the attitude, the approach to thinking problems, royalty. And so based on those novel experiences, I felt for educational purposes, information, they were worthy to report in book form. That was what happened.
It was a privilege indeed, because Prime Minister Boris Johnson is the 20th British Prime Minister to attend Eton. The Dukes of Cambridge and Sussex attended Eton. Prince Charles reportedly wanted to attend Eton. You know, household names like John Maynard Keynes, Ian Fleming, George Orwell are among old Etonians. So it really was a privilege. But you had quite a torrid time with regards to racism. Can you tell us about that and what informed the unfortunate incident of you being banned from returning to your alma mater?
Adventure falls onto a package of good and evil. You get white people coming into Africa and experiencing situations which were alien to their way of thinking, their culture, and then going back and writing about it in very adverse terms, presenting Africa not in edifying terms at all. So if I am going to be banned because I wrote an adventure story, the implication is that only the whites, the writing of adventure stories is the monopoly of the white supremacists. The black man should not do that. So when you say you're going to ban me, that was like a racist move. I was banned, and as a reaction to being banned, I reported the headmaster to the Race Relations Board, to the English Race Relations Board, and said this is an act of racism, because I nominated certain big figures who had written terrible things about the school. They weren't banned. So now I write a story, impartial, recording events which fell onto the scale of adventure. Why not you go and ban me? You can ban all these different people. And so that was the difference. You encountered supremacist attitudes, which were hostile, which reflected a concept of the black inferior being, and you allowed it to be exhibited in your utterances and your action. And I rebelled against it and wrote about it. And I also wrote about the merits of the school, which were very many. So why should you single out that negative aspect as a basis for saying to me, don't come back again, because you said we're racist, but you are. So that was like a truism. And I was told, don't come back here until further notice. So the whole situation was based on racial outlook.
Well, good on you for reporting it.
And with this recent development, of the apology, when are you going to go to Eton next and probably give a speech? Because it will be a very wonderful occasion amidst all of this, Black Lives Matter movement, statues being taken out that symbolizes slavery and racism to a very large extent. In this very cold world of white supremacists, it will be a model, and it will be a very, very wonderful event for you to go back to Eton and probably speak and address the students there in Eton.
First question, who's going to pay for it?
Eton should pay for it, sir.
They should fly you over.
They should fly you in a first-class plane.
Yes.
They should sit first class.
You're saying that. I'm hoping for that. But the person who you're asking to bring money out is this thing the same way as you are. So it's a very important consideration. When you say just come to Eton College, come. Unless they are going to come tell us how I'm going to get there and who's going to pay for it, then it's like wishful thinking. But if I do go there, I should not hold back my words in telling you what I experienced, how I saw the experience. But really, in retrospect, I'm not really bothered. Because, I'm not bothered, if you, the headmaster, feel there's a need to tender an apology, then I would say to you, if you want me to be gratified and appreciate an apology, please direct it to the Almighty. Because if the implication of racial prejudice is that you're saying that the Almighty made a genetic blunder by creating the first human population of God-men with a black skin. That's a blasphemy. So really, the apology shouldn't come to me. It should go to the Almighty. I'm just an individual. My attitude, essentially, is that we have all done enough to be ashamed of. Nobody has a monopoly. No white man, no black man, no Chinese, no Indian. Nobody has a monopoly of righteousness. That's how I'm seeing it. So the apology, although appreciated, as far as I'm concerned, is a non-issue. It was necessary. But I would have felt more appreciative if the headmaster had come and apologized to the Almighty for showing a racial supremacist outlook. Because that is like blasphemy to come and tell everyone that because he's black, you should be regarded as an inferior being. So that is the situation, how I'm seeing that matter of apology. If I'm invited, yes, come back to Eton College and talk about things of interest, then surely I should say yes, but the stumbling block, that is who's going to pay for it. That is the next question.
Indeed. But you appear to not be in need of that Americanism called closure. But a lot of other, former pupils at British public schools and private schools have been speaking out lately in the wake of the murder of George Floyd about all the humiliation and belittlement that they underwent at boarding school. And they're not quite as good-humored about it as you are. You phrased it as an adventure. How is it that this kind of racial attack on you, because as a part of your book that you you mentioned how some rude words were said, some assumptions were made, totally uninformed, of course, but there was a theory that black people have an immunity to pain. And I shudder to imagine what you went through with people trying to prove that theory. How is it that it hasn't left some kind of deep psychological scar?
Well, I was somewhat mollified by the very fact that I reacted violently. I broke a few jaws when certain people come in and say, yes, you're this job. My reaction was very, very violent. And I think they were quite intimidated. And the people were very careful what they said. When they did say it, my reaction was very, very violent. And it was effective. I mean, all right, it provoked more outrage and more racial insults and things like that. But still, that was how I was able to sort of absorb the pain and humiliation of being told that I'm inferior. I was able to demonstrate the physical reaction. I'm not inferior. So really, when I say adventure, it isn't really, it isn't like as if you're a sense of humor, of good humor. It's not the same situation at all. Many books written by white people about Africa come and tell terrible things about Africa, bad experiences they went through. One Etonian who was sent to go and teach in Ghana wrote the most unprintable invectives against the people of Ghana and country. He wasn't banned by the Ghanaian government. He wrote terrible things, but it was an adventure. He was mugged, he was beaten up, he contracted some sort of terrible disease which defied English doctors. But it was in the spirit of this is what happened to me. So it's like an education for which people learn. So really, I think I'm in order that if you are going to say one goes and experiences something outlandish, and then you write about it for public interest and for educational endeavors, people love it, and see the reality of what happens in other different of life. Africa, Eton College is only relevant in England, Nigeria. Most people don't know where Eton College is, they don't know the word. So really, it's like, that's why I say to you, it's an adventure, it's a privilege. I had a way of, I was a privileged way of life, which you couldn't experience here in this part of the world at all. And moreover, you had traditions of courtesy, dignity, courtesy, culture, refinement, English refinement, and which was very, very invaluable experience, because when you come back to Nigeria, I find it very easy to address challenges which most Africans will react by violence and self-control, courtesy. So there are advantages in going to England. Things which you do here in response, provocations, I wouldn't react to it at all. This is because I've been to England. I can survive here because I know how to survive in any situation.
You did say in your book that the relationship between yourself and your schoolmates changed when you performed in the play Anthony and Cleopatra. What role is it that you played, just out of curiosity, because I like that play? And also, I think, with regards to that, of this quote, I think has been attributed to Jesse Jackson, that excellence is the best deterrent for racism.
Well, in that play, Anthony Cleopatra, I was acting normal role with black people, the slaves. Towards the end of the play, when we came to the final bow before the audience, I did a black power salute.
Oh, wow.
The whole audience, they welcome to that. Yes, I see that. Okay, I was playing the slave. Anthony, Caesar, Cleopatra, they were all playing the big role. I was playing the slave as really black and black. So towards the end, when the curtain call, to say hello and thank you for the ovation. So I did a black power salute. The whole audience happened to laugh. On the matter of Jesse Jackson, excellence, yes, racial barriers. It has encountered racial barriers years ago, but now things have changed. Things have changed, has come parallel. The pressures are too much. They're to come and assist, to fight capitalist West. That's why Africa got the independence for all these capitalist social countries. So people are now knowing how to tread the line, the fine line of diplomacy. So you have to give and take. That's what we've been seeing, really. It isn't that excellence is going to be regarded as quality. So far as you have a black skin, Satan's deception is that you are done at the bottom ladder in this scheme of things.
I mean, I'd like to, further the line of Tundu's questioning by asking that, did you feel that by you showing some form of excellence, it was sort of like you paying what we now call the black tax, which is very sad, which no man should go through, which we should even be talking about, because everybody should be given a level playing field. Was that the case for you? And how did you feel when you did, outstanding things like you talked about in your book, and people look at you with a lot of surprise and say, oh, and say some very funny things like, wow, so
you must have cheated.
You must have cheated. You must have, funny things like that. How did you feel? Because these things were very, very demeaning.
Outrage. I felt outraged because there are many failures when people did the O-level. So many failures. And it was expected that I'd also be among the failures. Then I excelled with very impressive results. And people were shocked. And there's a sort of word went around this young man, either he cheated or they reduced his, they sort of allowed him to pass. They didn't believe that I could actually report a pass in the exams. And my reaction was one of outrage, and I didn't. In boxing, I won all my fights, but even the moment they stepped into the ring, so that they were already been defeated. The rest was easy. And in sports, you hit the ball in cricket, and you had a reputation for hitting the ball harder than anybody else. You were a bowler. They said this man's a demon bowler. So it was raced all the way. It was a race. It's a psychological situation, and one just had to live with it. You have to use your instinct to know how to react in different circumstances. But at the same time, I wasn't allowed to just keep quiet if there was a blatant insult that you're black, you're backward, go back to the jungle where you belong. All these statements. I didn't take it lightly. I reacted. I don't have no regrets on that matter at all. Having said all that, there was moments of sheer enjoyment. There were moments of sheer enjoyment of a scale which even in African government circles you wouldn't even be able to really relish. It was non-existent. There's no way you can compare the luxury you encounter in government in African countries to what obtained at Eton College. Way above everything you can imagine. So really, what has to be for comparison, good and bad. So that is why at the end of the day, you just look at there's no perfect system. How was it you were not able to enjoy? Because you were black. That is the reality. You can't pretend it's anything else. And so those things which were good, which were really very beautiful, you relish, you're part of it all. You can't overlook those things and say, because you're black, that you shouldn't look at anything good things, because there's some really fine people who are there that maintain the relationship. It's a dozen, more than that, of my former contemporaries. So really, that's why I use the word adventure. It was an outlandish experience. And that's why I say, and a black African pupil is an eccentric choice for an establishment that was created to design pillars for the ruling class and real establishment in England, not in black Africa here. So really, in retrospect, it was a privilege. Sometimes there were some bad moments. But the apology of the headmaster, well, it's like pressure of change. You have to come and say it. If you don't come say it, well, what will you see next? It's like people who went to protested near the White House and brought out National Guards. The people, there's a point beyond fear. And people, when you incite them to a certain level where they can no longer breathe, then they will react in a way which you'll regret. This is what has happened. This is why this Black Panthers protest is good. It's a good thing. And it's now, okay, I'm talking to you now in consequence of the Black Lives Matter protests. Otherwise, I wouldn't be talking to you at all. So he has brought some good things, brought apologies from the church, from all sorts of places. And so it's a move in the right direction. It shows you that there's nothing natural in revenge if it is seen in the light of a warning to the offender not to repeat the offense. That is, it's like a reprisal. Stop doing it. And, that is the reality of the situation today.
Well, thank you, sir. I'm sure a lot of people can really identify with the way you've characterized your experience at Eton, because in many of our lives, we've had situations that are not black and white. Some moments were pretty awful, but we're better as individuals for having had those experiences. So I'm sure a lot of people can relate. Now, one of the scandals in Nigerian education is the removal of, or was the removal of, history from the curriculum. And in the wake of the Black Lives Matter movement, there's been a lot of accusations that what has happened in England is tantamount to a removal because the British don't teach as part of their history curriculum about slavery, colonization, those dark chapters, and that it should be included in the syllabus. It should go beyond the Wars of the Roses and what have you. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I really wouldn't like to discuss Nigeria. Let's leave Nigeria out of this discussion time, please, with all due respect. They can't remove all these years. Nobody has been destroying monuments and statues. They haven't been doing so. This is the first time in recorded history that people have got up and said, look, this is history. This happened, and this is what happened to us. It's a history of oppression. Right. But at the same time, those monuments represent education on people who personified that era, a very, very dark era. And so really, history is very important. You have to go back to the past to learn from the past and now improve on in the future. If you say you're going to close what happened, it's like going to tell us that you don't want people to talk about the crucifixion, which is that blasphemy. This is what happened. And there's a message to come and save the world. And so if you are telling me that you are going to cancel or wipe out history from the record books, well, I don't want to hear all that. You're not living in reality. You're dreaming. It can't be done. This is what happens. You have got to record it. This is what you learn from it. Not learning from it. You will make adjustments, improve, based on a policy of continuous improvement. So if any government is going to tell you that they're removing history from the classrooms, then you are really signaling the end of an era for a country, because it can't live without history, what happened to the people. That is how you are going to create the basis for a viable society and the challenge of nation building. And so you really need to de-escalate. You need to revise such policies, because this is a very fundamental and essential part of education. So that fails. I mean, it's not worth discussing at all.
The question I actually asked was about the British curriculum and the fact that slavery and colonization is omitted. The Nigerian curriculum was really more of an aside. Should that be included in the British curriculum? Because some of the private school students of pupils from British schools have complained that not once did they read a single book by a black author in all their years of pupillage. What are your thoughts on that? Should more black awareness, black history be included in the British curriculum?
Well, let me try to answer that question realistically. If we can adopt a biblical frame of mind, let's go to the Bible and recall two instances in which, when Satan was dethroned from heaven, thrown out, and when he was destroyed in the Second World War, what was the reason given? That he should stop deceiving the nations. You are living in an era of deception, and people don't seem to recognize that very important reality. We're going through an era of deception. And what you read in the history books in the West are part and parcel of that policy of deception. And that's what people are fighting against. When we're complaining there isn't enough history about black, blah, 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 they're in order. But then they should also understand that this is, in this scheme of things, anything to the contrary what you're complaining about is disastrous to the white social order. And it's going to be very difficult to fight against. But now, with this development of Black Lives Matter, they're going to be compelled to go and revisit that reality. So that was complained in the past, but we're now in the present, and situations in the world now are compelling people now to go and revisit those things which you didn't want to entertain in the past. So the matter is being addressed. It is being addressed with this development of Black Lives Matter. I hope that answers your question more or less.
Yes, it does.
I would just like to say a very big thank you to you, for your time. And for me, what has been instructive has been the way you have taken it.
Yes.
Others will take it with a lot of resentment and a lot of anger. But like you have said, it's an adventure, I think it was the Beatles that had a song out. Anyway, this song had its origins from an Honorable Man that will always use that phrase, "Oblidi oblada, life goes on," and that has been just the way you have taken it, and it's been really very, very instructive. Thank you so much for your time, and hopefully we'll see you after all of this ends in Eton soon, and inspired in preparing the next generation of Etonians. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you very much indeed.
I'm very grateful to you. Thank you very much indeed.